Hi guys, Wet Hairbrand here today, and I have a very, very interesting video for today. I was going to initially make a completely different video with a completely different topic, but this has been shown to me across multiple social medias and people trying to get my attention about it. These are proposed changes by a Twitter user known as Lettuce. You can find their stuff right there that I'm going to put on the screen later on in editing. Once again, I think you can already tell by the fact that we're covering this that I do not agree with a lot of the changes, and if you're reading ahead, you can probably see some of these changes are really out there. But by all means, no hate or any sort of negativity directed this person's direction. If I catch you, if I know you're a viewer of mine, no matter where I am, Twitch, YouTube, I catch you being mean to this person because of their opinions, you're donezo. You're out of here. I know I don't do a whole lot of Xenomorph content on the channel, despite being a Xenomorph main, writing the guide, and being top 5 tail attacks in the world, but it's just kind of like we focus more on like commentary and discussion here on the channel. It's just kind of like not the theme, but I do have the background in that, so a lot of people are asking me to address this, so I will. So first off, we're going to start with a positive change, because most of this, I will say, overall, most of this I disagree with, but we're going to start with the positive change up at the top, which is that the tail attack cooldown time is decreased to match the basic attack. Now, if you don't know this, the tail attack cooldown is 3 seconds, whereas the basic attack time in DBD is 2.7. So this is a request that's very commonly requested, especially by people that aren't too familiar with the Xenomorph, and they learn this information. They're usually pretty caught off guard by it. They're like, why is that not similar? And I mean, I'll take it. It's not one of those things that I feel like is like necessary. It's not a make it or break it, it's not a deal breaker, but it would be nice. So easy peasy. But this is where we start to get into the very, very egregious, nasty changes that I do not like in any way, shape, or form, and this second one being that basic attacks cannot be used in crawler mode. They say that they don't feel strongly about this, but when I tried to talk to them about that personally in Twitter, they defended it pretty they decided to defend that pretty intensely, so I guess they do. I think the tail end of this, no pun intended, is that at the end of the day, you can simply hit tail attacks. Completely simplifies the fact of turrets, the fact survivors dodging the tail attack, poor collision, and its interaction with the tail attack. The user, which I tried to get further elaboration on in Twitter replies, seems to be under the impression that only bad Xenomorphs seem to like have trouble with this, and a good Xenomorph that's skillful hits all of their tail attacks, all of them. Like even the best players, when faced against really, really tremendously good survivors, will miss attacks just because if you know, as attacks in Dead by Daylight are reactable and dodgeable, they're going to react and dodge to these things or get a hard read on where you're sending the tail attack and bait you. Like there's a lot that can go wrong even with a skilled Xenomorph. There's a lot that can go wrong when sending a tail attack, even if it's aimed correctly, and to assume that every single time Xenomorph misses it's just because they're bad is not logical, and also not logical as a defense to why M1 should be taken away. There's plenty of killers in Dead by Daylight just in this concept that can also zone for an M1. It's Xenomorph is not the first or the last character that will have the ability to do this, so to be extremely harsh on the Xenomorph in particular is kind of silly to me. This second one is another one that I disagree with, but it's on the other end of things. This one's talking about how double turret setups need to be removed, which I find very, very frustrating from the survivor point of view, because double turret setups are essentially not really a tech, because techs require, like, you know, intense gameplay of some sort, but some knowledge of the game exploited, but it's a strategy, I think is a more apt term. It's a strategy used by survivors to put two flame turrets right next to each other. That way the Xenomorph either gets knocked out of the power or has to take a tremendous amount of time to break the turrets in order to continue chase, which is, you know, buying that time one way or another, right? I think this shows like a lack of understanding of like how the turrets and control stations work. So control stations go on a 30-second cooldown after you grab a flame turret. So you can't just double grab them from the same one. So if you're going for a double turret setup, you either have to wait a really long time to get the second one, or you have to go globetrotting for another one. And in that case, you're carrying it a really long distance, which makes you as the survivor super vulnerable because you're 35% hindered while carrying one of these things. I think it just like it's not a setup that's just free and easy. It takes first off the understanding that it's good and that you should be doing it, but also that it takes putting yourself in a very vulnerable spot. I don't understand this. It feels like there's like two different mindsets happening. So like, let's take away basic attacks in crawler mode because they can just zone and get hits for free, which makes survivor miserable and doesn't give them a whole lot of counterplay. But also let's remove survivor counterplay. Like, it's like, wait, are we for survivors having a lot of counterplay in the skill, or are we not? Because I don't understand. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a set mindset here. So here we are going to go again with another very, very, very intense nerf to the character. And this is that tunnels can only be in crawler mode. So tunnels are your main way to not only traverse the map and exhibit macro pressure, but to also track the survivors when you do not know where they are. So making this only available in crawler mode is omitting your ability to not only be able to have access to this unless you're in a very specific mode, but also takes away your main way to get your power back. If you don't know, you have 8 times the charge rate of your power while in the tunnels, moving in the tunnels specifically, as opposed to topside just walking around. Just cutting off like your main map presence entirely when you're outside of your mode is just really crazy and really silly. Like, this is just an objective nerf to the character. Like, there is no way or reason this makes sense. Like, this just doesn't make sense to me. Like the rationale says that it's more thematic, which is a thing they list throughout this whole time. Well, it's more thematic, which is like, I just don't think that taking away a killer's macro presence for part of the game because it makes it more thematic, that doesn't make them feel good to play. I mean, let's take a look at a character like Myers, who is very thematic to play, but often ranks in people's bottom 3 in the game. Like, he's thematic, but he's miserable to play because he is so weak because of how thematic he is. So, like, obviously we don't want to go the other way and make like a Freddy situation where we take away everything that makes him thematic and make him a very basic killer. But we can see a live example of how making a character too thematic can hurt them. So I don't want that to happen to the Xenomorph. I also say that turret damage rate should be doubled outside of crawler mode. Once again, they seem to very much like, there seems to be this mindset of like, we really want you playing outside crawler mode for a bit, which is in that case, you're 115 lizard with hand, which is not very good. And they're just like making that more and more and more punishing to be that 115 character. So not only do they want you to be that 115 lizard with hand with no other options more often, but they also want it to be harder to get back into your crawler mode to avoid that. Like, it's just, you're making them a 115 character, a 115 M1 killer, which are some of the weakest, most boring characters to play in the game. Like, why are we, like, this character, like, I don't know this person's background, but this almost seems like it's made by somebody who doesn't like facing the Xenomorph, and that's just like bleeding through really hard, and it's not making informed decisions about what would be best for the character and the health of the game, having this character in the game, but is more painted through the mindset of somebody who really just wants this character to suffer. These are objectively are changes that would hurt the character, make him more frustrating to play, and they're being portrayed as, oh, well, this will make things better, and if you're just a skilled Xenomorph, it's just not a problem. But no, this would make the character miserable. Like, this character already has a very, very low pick rate. On Nightlight, they only have like a 2.5 or something like that. They have a very low pick rate. This is going to make that go even lower because you're forcing them to stay in their useless mode more often, in addition to making it harder to get back into that mode. Like, nobody wants to play as a 115 killer with an M1. Like, and that's all they have. Like, nobody wants to do that. So why are you trying to create that situation more? That doesn't make sense to me. I think a lot of this is just kind of patched over of like, well, if the Xenomorph's good, it's fine. And it's like, that's not, nobody is perfect. Even a Xenomorph that plays them every day and is super intense in them is going to miss a turret every once in a while. They're going to not notice a turret some places every once in a while. Like, and also, that's not even just foregoing the fact that like, if we're not in a competitive mode, we're not playing ranked mode DBD, like, I'm not trying to play at 100% strength and effort all the time. Like, the assumption that just, oh, well, if you're just good, it's not a problem. It just, you don't at all account for the fact of like human error, people not playing at like max efficiency all the time. Like, it's just, it's a very bad take, and it's used to justify some really bad things. So this person, I've noticed as we get into the add-ons, really hates the turret add-ons. Kind of takes the behavior out of like, if they're used a lot, they're not great. Emergency helmet gets a pretty big target on spec, so does Lambert star map. The stagger is increased to 100% and makes the flame damage permanent in crawler mode. So essentially you would get a buff in a sense that like, okay, you can ignore flame turret staggering for 100%, which if you know about the secondary effect, that that would be pretty crazy. But then it makes flame damage permanent. So like, if you partially go through a turret, that stays now. That's a horrendous nerf. That is a horrendous nerf to this add-on. It's only a green, by the way. We're not talking about like an iridescent or a purple that often have like that kind of like, oh, you get this, but you lose this kind of like design. This is a green add-on. This is not a very high rarity add-on, and you're making it have such a tremendous downside that like over time you will just always get knocked out of your power. And based on their base kit changes, you could not be able to circumvent this in any way by hopping back in a tunnel or playing intelligently or playing skillfully, which is something they used to defend a lot of their decisions. Why, if you just play skillfully, if you're just good Xenomorph, it's not a problem. Once again, this is another fact of, hey, I just want the Xenomorph player to play more in 115 M1 killer mode for some reason, even though that's miserable. Like, oh, I don't understand. Lambert Starmat, like you said, also, you know, gets a target on its back here, increases movement speed in the tunnels by 4 meters per second, which is not that crazy. Once again, the evidence for this is like, well, anti-turret bad. Anti-turret stuff is bad. Please play more in 115 man with no power mode, but it's more thematic again, right? Getting a very minor numbers change is more thematic and great as a result. It's not. Okay, so this next one is probably the biggest one and the funniest one for me, and this is like also where I take issue with their changes, because the reason that they're trying to negate emergency helmet and Lambert star map is because it's such a common add-on brought on the character to deal with turrets, which they already have their own feelings about, you know, being able to stay in power and crawler mode. So they don't want those run every game, but then they like to introduce some add-ons that will absolutely take their place and also be run every single game. So I don't get that very much. Acidic Blood will be one of them, and I do agree that Acidic Blood is a little redundant. It's a very funny meme add-on, but ideally as Xenomorph, you're not really getting stunned that much, so you take with that what you will. Acidic Blood now decreases turret resistance by 25%, which is pretty intense. Adds 2 more points to pull, so you'll have up to 6 turrets in a game at any time, so that's a pretty severe nerf. And then tail attacks insta-down. Tail attacks insta-down. Imagine you're looping. You'll see this in tandem with another add-on that would absolutely be run every game. You imagine you're just like looping around like a waist-high loop on Macmillan, and you just get smacked once and that's it. You just call it a day. It's not even like Billy, where at least they have to, like, I don't know, curve around the structure, take pallet control. Like, nope, you just pop them on the head, just a little plop on the noggin, insta-down. That's crazy. That's crazy strong. That it would be absolutely worth it to deal with the other 2 parts if I just bop somebody on the noggin and insta-down them. That's crazy strong. That's crazy strong. This would absolutely be run every game. So I don't know why we were like, emergency helmet, Lambert star map, brought every game, bad. Insta-down add-on for the tail. Woo! This one is probably the most confusing add-on change that I've seen on this list. Cat carrier. Survivors are oblivious while carrying turrets. I don't care how weak or boring it is, but it's, once again, it works with the description. It's more thematic. So, just a little bit of spoiler. They go down to Molted Skin later, which is infamously one of Xenomorph's worst add-ons. Xenomorph's worst add-ons is Molted Skin and Light Wand. They quite literally like do basically nothing. So changing those, I'm down with. But they basically, while saying that Molted Skin sucks down in the later description, just take that effect, apply it to Cat Carrier, and give it a worse effect. Molten Skin, if you don't know, applies exhausted while they're holding a turret. This applies oblivious while holding a turret. Going from a green to a purple. Why are we like Molten Skin bad? Take the effect away. But no. We're actually going to bring it back on a higher rarity add-on and give it a worse effect. I don't understand. Harpoon Gun actually did like destroying a turret with a tail attack causes all survivors to scream and reveal their location. That's actually a cool idea. Harpoon Gun, I don't think it's bad the way it is, but it's very limited and very niche. This will still be very limited and very niche, but it would give it a little bit more procs a game, which would be neat. I'd like that. Seal Ration shows all turret auras within 12 meters, which it kind of starts overlapping with Seal Rations. It gives it a very, very firm like limit to like the range on Seal Rations, but if this is like, if I'm reading this as they put it, they're taking away the requirement to be in the tunnels to see that, and that's already what Semiotic Keyboard does in addition to the gen intensity thing. So like, that's a purple rarity add-on, by the way, so you're kind of like overlapping those 2 effects, I think, a little too much. once again, now we're getting to molten skin, which I kind of previewed a little bit. That this molten skin does suck as a current add-on, and it's something I would personally change. But their new effect for it is increasing the tail attack range by 25%. So once again, we're removing emergency helmet and Lambert star map because, well, these add-ons are brought every game, and it's very brainless to do it. But we're also going to give an add-on that's a green rarity, like emergency helmet, that would also be brought every game, because there's absolutely no reason you would not bring extra range on an already super far ranged attack, which is 4.8 meters for being a 115 killer. There's no reason people would not be running this every game. And this also starts to kind of like stomp on Nemesis's toes a bit, because like the Xenomorph's tail attack range is less than Nemesis's, even in tier 1 and tier 2. So by essentially bumping up their range, you're going to give people an even less of a differentiation between them and Nemesis, and give a lot of people more reason to play Xenomorph over Nemesis, which Nemesis mains are already kind of like tilted and not very happy a lot of the time that Xenomorph does have a fairly similar attack that does not require an infection and also has similar range despite being slightly smaller. Now that's going to be even worse of an issue, so I don't know if we thought that one out fully. Parker's Headband is another add-on I'm not particularly a fan of. Their replaced effect is hitting a survivor with a tail attack makes the turrets malfunction for 15 seconds. It's kind of a neat idea. I don't think the problem with Parker's Headband is necessarily the effect. It's just that the numbers are bad. Like, the numbers are too low. The haste is not a high enough number, or the duration is not high enough. If one of these numbers was higher, just one of them, it'd be fine. But the fact that both these numbers are fairly low, both the haste and the duration, makes it kind of pointless. I like the idea of a Bloody Fingernails add-on from Sadako on Xenomorph. You just need to bump the numbers up a bit. I didn't think it needed a completely new effect. Yeah, that's how I feel about these changes. I've had a lot of people send this to me, and I tried talking personally with Lettuce about these changes, but they did not seem to be very open to my ideas about why I do not like these changes, and I can't really fit a lot of my feelings about them into just like, you know, the character limit on Twitter. So here's the full video about it, both for people that are curious how I felt about it and for Lettuce themselves who wanted my more extensive thoughts about it. Generally, I feel like Xenomorph, what they need direly the most is like a collision pass, because the collision in the game is kind of wonky, which I'm sure you notice more on like Billy and Bubba, which is why Billy got a collision pass and Bubba's getting a collision pass. But Xeno is another one of those characters that, because of the nature of their power, they bump into collision a lot. So I think they would also need that. But otherwise, I think the character is in a fairly good place. I do think that the turrets in general, in terms of like being frustrating to deal with, is something that like you can get, you can learn to deal with over time by learning the character and learning how to deal with them. And I think their strength is fine. They're like bottom of A, top of B. They're in that kind of like cozy zone of being a good character, but having a lot of like things you can do against them, and also having that kind of singularity effect of like, hey, you can't just pick them up and win and just lay into people in like your first 4 games. You gotta go like get used to them and learn them, which obviously, as Larry Mains will tell you, getting used to and learning a character and getting reward for it feels pretty good. So I think generally the character's in a good spot. I would definitely not make these drastic of a changes, and I feel like the methodology of, well, if you're just good, it doesn't matter, and also it's just more thematic, are not reasons to severely nerf a character like these changes would. So yeah, what do you guys think of these changes? Once again, please don't direct any negativity or anything personal towards Lettuce themselves. This is not meant to be like, haha, they're so dumb, blah blah blah. It's not the point of this. It's just that it's easier to make a video about this, and a lot of you were personally sending me this as well. So just, you know, taking 2 birds down with 1 stone. Yeah, what do you guys think about this? Let me know down in the comments below. But that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow, because I upload daily, but if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Bye.